Hi, this is Dan Sullivan. I'd like to welcome you to the Multiplier Mindset Podcast. Today we're going to hear from Chad Johnson, who is a remarkable entrepreneur, and he's also one of our remarkable associate coaches in Strategic Coach. And Chad's company, which is in the printing industry, specialized printing industry, has grown by more than 10 times since he's been in Strategic Coach, and he's a great husband and a great father, and he has 11 children and 8 of them girls, so you have to be an extraordinary man to have done that successfully. So this is a very, very inspiring message that Chad gave to us.
We have a farm in northern Oregon, north central Oregon, and there's about a 6,000 square foot barn on that property. There was, burned down, long story. Wonderful story. But that barn was about a 6,000 square foot barn, and the top was all kind of remodeled into kind of a fitness center, gym, office, library. It was a beautiful space, but down below it was completely and totally a barn. I mean, tractor, equipment, farm implements, you name it. We have this whole concept at Coach called 80-20, right? In our family, that's a big guiding principle because we don't want to be perfectionists, and we don't want to say, oh, we're going to delay action so we can make it perfect. So on this given Saturday, I said, you know what, kids, we're going to do an 80-20 on the barn. And an 80-20 meant we're just going to go in there and we're going to make it really, really a big improvement, put the bikes away, put things away, sweep out the main areas, but not perfection. So we broke up into 2 teams, and I was in the upstairs team, and there was a downstairs team, you know, because there's a lot of kids in our family, and we divide and conquer, right? We turned on the music, set a 2-hour timer, said, hey, we're going to bang this out before lunch. Well, we both did our duties, right? And I didn't go downstairs until the timer hit. And when it's over, we're walking down the stairs. I come down the stairs, and my children who were downstairs were looking at me. Well, I don't know what all they were thinking, but I'm sure they were excited to show me what they had accomplished. And I come walking down the stairs, and to my right, there's a little section where we keep scraps of wood. And it's the lumber that doesn't fit along the wall in an all organized area over there. This is kind of the scraps, the little pieces here and there. It looked like they just all kind of been pitched in this little 4x6 area cubby. And my eye caught it as I came down the stairs. And I immediately turned and I looked, and I'm like, hey kids, come here. Like, what is this? And I started to put their face in the one thing out of 3,000 square feet, right? This one little spot that wasn't perfect. And I really kind of started to, berate them in the sense of, guys, don't you care? Can't we do quality work? I mean, what do we think? Can we just chuck stuff over here? And I saw them go from this place of, oh, I'm so proud to show my dad and my father what we've done. I'm so pumped. He's going to love this. To this place of I deflated them completely. I saw them just go, oh, my word. And I'll be real frank with you. At the moment, it was crazy because they had done what I'd asked. They'd done far more than I asked. They'd far surpassed 80% on them. I mean, everything had looked beautiful in that space except for that one thing. And to see me suck the life out of them, it just, all of a sudden they turned and walked towards the house. And I'll be frank with you, that's where it hit me. I was like, here I am. I love these kids. I'm so proud of them. I want to build them. And here I just utterly destroyed them. And I was like, kids, come here. Stop. Please, come here. And they turn around expecting more abuse probably. Dad, what's going on? And I said, no, come here. I am so sorry. I said, please forgive me. I said, I know about the gap. It hit me in that moment that I just gapped them out, right? I put them in that place of total, you're not enough and you have failed and you should be ashamed of yourself when they had done such an amazing thing. So the ability for me in that moment, I was like, I recognize I've got to apologize. And to see them as I did that, to see them start to come back to life, I said, what you've done here is more than I asked. You surpassed my expectations. And yet my weak tendency is to find that one thing. I said, this is nothing in the scheme of this. I love what you've done here. Come here. I'm so proud of you. And in that moment, it was such an important lesson for me again, because not only do I do this, I put my wife there, right? I find that I put team members there. I can walk into our facility and we're ready for a client visit, 35, 40,000 square feet of space. It's all industrial and you want it pallets in a row and lines painted and organized and everything just humming it. And I can walk in and find the one thing that isn't right, right? And there's a million examples of that. But to me, that moment in the barn, I just realized I don't want to be that guy. I want to be that person who is constantly going in and then looking for all the good things. And it's fine to address the one thing later. It is. You know, some people are like, don't address it. No, we can talk about it later at some point. But even that, it wasn't the objective that day. And so, again, another lesson for me. I'm always learning, always growing. You know, like Dan says, I find myself going to the Gap often, but I don't stay there very long. And that was one of those moments where I was like, I've not only gone in the Gap myself, but I put them there.
So Chad mentioned that even though he knows the concept, even though he's a coach, even though he's an incredibly successful businessman, and from my perspective and everybody else's, he's a great father, he's a great husband, he still goes into the Gap. So people say, well, Dan, you created this concept 25 years ago. You don't go into the Gap. And I said, yeah, not more than 5 or 6 times a day. And they said, well, what's it worth then having the concept if you're still going in the Gap? And I said, well, I used to go into the Gap and spend 6 months there. Now I go into the Gap and I spend 60 seconds there because very quickly all my sensors go off and I say, something's wrong, something's wrong, something's wrong. I feel myself tightening up. I get really sort of angsty. And I said, what am I doing? Oh, I'm measuring against the ideal. Okay, turn around. Where'd you come from? I measure backwards and all of a sudden I feel loose again. I feel relaxed because I've made progress. So the whole point is that you're never going to stop going into the Gap. The only question is, do you spend a long time there or do you spend a little time there? So if it's 5 or 6 times a day and it uses up about 5 minutes, I don't care. I don't care. The rest of the time, I'm enjoying enormous progress. So it's not about perfection. You see, you could go into the Gap thinking about being really good at not going into the Gap, because I had someone who was really very dispirited when she came to her workshop. Terrific entrepreneur, very skilled, very talented. And she came in and she had just learned the Gap 90 days ago. She was coming back for her workshop. And I said, you don't look so enthusiastic right now. What's up? And she said, I went 12 weeks without going into the Gap. And then in the last week, I went into the Gap and I feel so badly about it. And I said, well, you've just turned the Gap into a new way of going into the Gap. So we're going to do it. And I wouldn't make getting through a day without going into the Gap any kind of goal. It's nothing. The moment you notice you're in it, remind yourself that you have to measure backwards, and all of a sudden your energy comes back and your enthusiasm for the next achievement goes up. That's what it looks like. It's consciousness, it's alertness, it's responsiveness. It's not perfection.